Hi, everybody. My name is Joel Hinman. I run the reading series at the Writer Studio. And tonight we have a terrific reading for you to celebrate April, which is Poetry Month. We're going to be celebrating our poetry students, and you're going to get to hear tonight from Cassie Burkhardt, from Rob Cook, from Linda Drach, Taryn FitzGerald, Valerie Hastings, Dave Kirkpatrick, and Virginia Sasser. If you're not familiar with the Writer Studio, we are a workshop-oriented program that does in classrooms, although we're virtual now, of course, and online teaching. We stress kind of three different paths: fiction, poetry, and memoir. We're based in New York City, but we have strong satellite programs in Tucson, Arizona, in San Francisco, California, and now in Rome, Italy. So that's who we are. We were, the Writer Studio, by the way, was founded by a poet, Pulitzer Prize-winning poet, Philip Schultz, 34 years ago. And so tonight, our co-hosts are the two people who really lead the charge as far as poetry at the Writer Studio, and that is Lisa Bellamy and Peter Krass. And it's my pleasure now to pass the baton off to Lisa Bellamy. Lisa, if you would unmute, that would be great.
Thank you. Thank you, Joel. And thank you, everybody, for coming. And thank you, readers. I'll talk for a few minutes, and then I'll pass the baton to my colleague, Peter Krass. So welcome. Advanced poetry in the Writer's Studio simply means by advanced that students are willing, more often than not, to apply the techniques of the Writer's Studio approach to their poetry writing. Typically, they've gone through level 1 and level 2. Sometimes they come in through level 3 after doing fiction or memoir for a while. And, you know, sometimes they come in completely sideways if they have an MFA or a lot of publishing experience and they want to really try the Writer's Studio method. So that's advanced poetry. There are two advanced poetry classes right now. One is Peter's online class, and one is my used to be New York City class, but a now live remote class on Google Meet for the foreseeable future. So advanced poetry started a while ago, and Peter and I were actually in the first class taught by the wonderful Abby Wender, who has a book out from Four Way Books. I encourage everyone to read it. She's a wonderful teacher. And she and Phil looked at poets in the Writer's Studio and felt that they very much could use their own class to nurture and prepare either for their own work or perhaps to go on to the school's master class with Philip Schultz, and that is still the case. And by prepare, we mean we have no house style per se. Students have not been molded to write a particular way, but rather they're encouraged to open the door to finding their own techniques and their own material in the class. That's true throughout the school, and that's true in advanced poetry. Some students quite happily stay in advanced poetry, and others make the choice with their teachers to start to prepare for the school's masterclass with Phil. And then finally, of these two classes, after the New York City advanced poetry class went on for a while. At that time, the online program was quite fledgling. And then as it began to develop, I was asked to start an online advanced poetry class, and I passed the baton to Rachel and Rachel Nevins. Rachel Nevins passed the baton on to Peter Krass, who now teaches that class. And I'll now ask Peter to take over and continue talking, and I will mute and hear what he has to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. And thanks everyone for joining us tonight. I'm very excited and I'm very proud of my students. I think you'll enjoy them. I wanted to pick up on one piece that Lisa mentioned and talk about one of the things that the Writer's Studio does not have, and that's a house style. We don't have a house style. Even though all the poems you're going to hear tonight got started as exercises based on the work of other writers, in some cases, these are some of the same exercises. Each voice is quite unique. I think you'll hear that. It's really quite a great thing. So we're very happy with that, and I think you'll hear this really wide range of voices tonight, and it's really wonderful. And with that, I'd like to introduce our first reader, Rob Cook. Rob was a founding employee at Pixar and a recipient of the very first Oscar given for software. He grew up in rural East Tennessee. That was followed by a period of physical and spiritual wandering. He eventually landed up in San Francisco. Along the way, studying physics at Duke, going to graduate school at both Cornell and Caltech, playing the piano, climbing rocks, meditating, and flying planes. Wow. Today, Rob and his wife live in North Beach, and they have a son who lives in Brooklyn. Smart man. Rob has 13 poems that have either been published or are pending publication. Everyone, please join me in welcoming Rob Cook.
Thank you, Peter. And thank you all for joining us today. I've been studying at the Writer Studio for 2 years, and I've learned so much there. So I first start with just a huge thank you to all the teachers that I've had there. It's been great. My first poem is called Mocha Wars. I should have ordered a non-calf, start over. Get my setup here. I should have ordered a non-fat decaf latte. But here I sit drinking a large whole milk triple shot mocha with extra whipped cream, savoring the sweet taste of defiance, basking in the warmth of the carcinogenic sun. A few feet away, a small boy is storming the walls of a castle, cleverly disguised as a bench. He runs at it again and again with squeals of delight, punctuated by the occasional protests of his mother telling him to behave. He ignores her. I drink my mocha. The boy is winning the battle. The voice of authority is no match for his exuberance. Not today. But on another day, years ago, another boy was storming the walls of a similar castle when the battering rams of admonition finally breached the walls of his young mind. Despite the loss, he fights on to this day, though the struggle is now contained inside the walls. And at some point, running became exercise. Squealing became childish. And the simple act of deciding what to drink became a proxy battle in a cold war between submission and rebellion. The next poem is called Autumn. Watching a couple nestling through a confetti of golden leaves, feeling your hand no longer in mine, your gold still on my finger. Forever, you said when you put it there, but even it is bound to the procession of days. The day the jeweler fashioned it, the day the miner pulled it from the depths, the time before days when its atoms were forged in the fiery union of two neutron stars. And today, this one particular day, leaves dancing to an autumn air, world fading in the lingering light, time flowing relentlessly along, everything eventually succumbing to its wake, even gold, even you. Next is a poem called Waxwing. The first time he hit her, she didn't see it coming. He'd been drinking, he was sorry, she gave him another chance, and things were okay again until the next time, and the next, and last night. Looks in mirror, phones in sick, ice on face, warm cup of tea. She rocks in the chair, staring out the window at the fall colors in the crisp, clear air. And there they are, cedar waxwings. Her favorite birds are back, feasting on firethorn berries, bright, red, overripe, fermenting, intoxicating the birds. She can't help but smile as they stagger-fly around. Smack, one of the waxwings swerves into the window in front of her, lies stunned on the ground. She rushes outside, picks it up gently, cradles it in her arms, protecting it until it comes to its senses and can fly away. She goes inside, cleans up the spilt tea. She looks for the waxwing, but there's only the imprint of wings on the glass and her reflection in the pane. The last poem is called Dates. Yesterday, you brought me some pitted dates stuffed with Point Reyes blue cheese, my favorite. And on top of each, an almond. But deep in work and worry, all I saw was interruption and glared with annoyance. The affection between us thrown askew in the space of a look. A seemingly minor moment, but life is lived in little moments, built on little choices, and we miss out on it, one little plate of pitted dates at a time. Thank you all. Some of the poems I read are pending journal publication. I want to thank the editors at Evening Street Review, Jelly Bucket, and Pennsylvania English for permission to read them to you tonight. Our next reader is Taryn FitzGerald. She's an artist and poet living in Brooklyn, New York. Her photo and video works have been exhibited nationally and abroad and are part of the Impact Archive, the Internet Archive, and the Reserve Film and Video Collection at the New York Library for the Performing Arts. She's been writing for a few years now and is grateful to her teachers at the writing studio, Sylvie Bertrand, Jennifer Dalvia, and Lisa Bellamy. Her poems have been published in Edge, an outdoor living skills zine. So over to you, Taryn, with a reminder to unmute. Thank you, everybody.
Hey, thank you. Thank you, Rob. That was awesome. Tough act to follow. Yeah, thank you everyone for being here. I wish I could see you all, but I can feel you. And I also want to thank Joel and Peter and Lisa for putting this together. This is really awesome. So tonight I'm going to read 3 poems, and the first poem came out of a Kaveh Akbar exercise from calling a wolf a wolf. Just wanted to throw that out there. And it's about having to make a really high stakes decision after receiving a diagnosis of cancer. It's called Upon Receiving the News at Home. Like the sea, I'm indifferent. To the cat, I'm a can opener. The ants want free room and board. The in-laws want to carry on their name. Everybody wants something from me. I'm having trouble blending into the background, like a tree that wants to be a candelabra, like a fragile pygmy seahorse dressed in a camouflage of pert pink nipples. We all just want to be seen, don't we? Apparently my womb is a beast with sharp teeth. The doc calls, lays it out on the line. Baby or hysterectomy? The choice is yours. Out back, a young maple can't decide when to grow its next branch. The honeybee that stung me just died. A few summers back, a mother octopus in the aquarium was found eating herself alive after hatching her eggs. I wonder if she felt she had a choice. So the next poem I'm going to read is It's a kind of stream of consciousness as the narrator drives and reflects on a really profound experience she's had. It was actually a healing. And that healing was part of this poem, but it has now become a separate poem. And it's called On Knowing Without Knowing How You Know. Driving home through the soothing waves of the Blue Ridge Range, I found myself tracking an enormous bird cloud shape with huge, open, feathered wings set against a cobalt sky, readying itself for flight and lifting me too at the sternum and gut. I thought about the murmuration of starlings or warblers, huge flocks that mill about the same spot or move effortlessly en masse in some direction, buoyed by the gentle pull of Earth's magnetic field. I always wondered how they know not to bump into each other. My relationship to knowing vestigial at best, part of an ongoing evolutionary journey, like losing our tails or the ability to navigate any landscape. My GPS set for too long to comfortably numb. Forgetting better than knowing, better than spinning out like that jackknifed 18-wheeler 10 miles back. Or back when my heartbeats used to chase each other into a tightly packed spherical bait ball, like in those nature docs where tiny anchovies try to fend off vicious bluefin trevally attacks by ceaselessly spinning from a common center. Only I forget now if I was predator or prey. That old dream where I'm flat on a banquet table, the guests picking at my meat falling off the bone, seemed just that, old. As I turned to the curb, my steady partner, inadequacy. On the radio, excuse me, on the radio, a psychologist and an anthropologist debated the existence of true love. A house on wheels whizzed by in the passing lane, and I felt my body sway like one of the birds in the bird cloud, sway to the bend in the road, turning, tuning, listening for my cue, knowing without knowing how I know, hand over hand on the steering wheel, following the curve of black on yellow arrow road signs, windows open, hair blowing. The dashboard clock read 7:47, and I wondered if it would still be light out by the time I got home. And this last poem was actually from a Lawrence Joseph exercise and plays with notions of identity, with actually the biography section of a website with, like what we choose to put in our bios and what we choose to leave out, and how that can take so many different configurations. It's called About Us. I was born the same day as John the Baptist. If I was a boy, I might have been named Tyrone. Mom gave me her eye for color. Dad, his not quite perfect pitch. I was raised a Jersey girl, my hair a sandy shore. I coveted Jan Brady's imaginary boyfriend, George. Dubbed a heretic for not listening to The Boss, I worshiped Carly Simon and Elton John. I was often mistaken for Karen, Darren, Tara, or Sharon. My brothers called me Tubbs. Mary, Queen of Scots, could never have known I would have flaky skin. The Metropolitan Opera doesn't remember me as a treat, nor the crumbs Hansel and Gretel dropped at my stubby feet. I helped my mother open the many cans of Figaro tuna cat food that my father bought with the money he barely made singing lyric tenor roles, such as Count Almaviva in The Marriage of Figaro, his own marriages providing their particular lessons in fidelity. Ms. Kissel, the 10th grade English teacher, a former Army captain, believed I would make something of myself. In a reenactment of Lord of the Flies, my classmates selected me to be Ralph, the strong moral leader of the boys. A month before my 17th birthday, after years of shielding her from his rage, and after a week of heavy rain, my mother left my father, left me alone with him. I turned into a cockroach, lay in bed on my back like Gregor Samsa, with unshaven legs and armpits up, dangling in stale air. What a shell I was, numb, except for the slight saunter in my step. I searched for myself in Pittsburgh, in art, in centipede arcade games and curly fries at the Tartan Grill. I searched in the mirror stage, in archetypes, in the poetics of space. Once back in the city that never sleeps, I'm told I look familiar, like somebody's sister or cousin or aunt, like Annie Hall. I place an ad in the back of the Village Voice, try to lasso souls in search of themselves. Messages pour in on my answering machine. Hi, people say I look like Fidel Castro, even though I'm much shorter, don't smoke cigars, and I've never been to Cuba. If you're interested, give me a call. Often I feel like a scrunched up slice of Wonder Bread as it breaks up inside a tub of my own tears. When my dog Charlie dies, my hair falls out. I overhear a woman on the street say, I never knew her, but I like her like nobody's business. Words strung together that seem to twist and turn like a Moebius strip. After a client meeting, I realize polyester blouses make my breasts pop. I dream I'm a roasted pig on a platter on a banquet table, about to be devoured. I try to speak, tell the guests who I am, but the words won't come. My name is Mark Anthony, and I look like the singer Mark Anthony. I'll let you be the judge. Give me a call. I build a life with a man I meet at the Dewdrop Inn. I photograph reenactments from our country's early wars, sweat the weight of my camera, the limits of film capture, curse the suburbanites who block the stage skirmishes from my frame. My teen refuses to brush his teeth with toothpaste. I hear the screams of strays brawling from my Brooklyn backyard and wonder why cockroaches die on their backs. Is it because they can't right themselves, can't fight back? Or do they intentionally roll over and surrender, knowing they're already dead? I eat lobster rolls and donut holes at the Waverly Diner. I see my origins inside the tiny dark shapes that float before my eyes. I am as old as the stars. And thank you, everybody. Thanks again. This is a wonderful opportunity. I really appreciate it. So now I would like to introduce the next reader, the fabulous Virginia Sasser, classmate. Virginia is a designer, writer, and art director working in Brooklyn. For her design MFA at MICA, she analyzed and pattern-coded poetic devices used by Geoffrey Chaucer, and Jay-Z. But it took many more years for her to actually start writing poetry herself. Originally from Virginia, she has been with the Writer Studio in New York since 2018. Take it away, Virginia.
Thanks, Taryn. That was awesome. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me, Joel, Lisa, and Peter. I'll be reading a couple pieces, 3 pieces actually, that started out as Tommy Pico exercises in Lisa Bellamy's class. The first one is called Pregnant. 8 months along, I'm a slug in salt. My current hangups are embarrassing. Like, what right do I have to conjure you, give you a name, brand you forever like you're some lifestyle quality metric, some accidental, surprise, part me, Easter egg value prop I get to design, market, mood board, manifest. Some women glide into motherhood like it's natural or something, and I can't even find the energy to wash lettuce. I am not well versed in mother. The EPA started dredging the Gowanus Canal, and it'll be great come 2023. Surely dolphins and otters will backflip around the 3rd Street Bridge, but there must have been runoff or pH shock or water too hot. because today my neighborhood shores glisten with silver fish the size of my hand. Hundreds dead or dying, flopping wrong-angled near the surface. Bodies so polluted, even the seagulls won't eat them. Wide eyes pleading, what's wrong with me? Like when a football player tries to get up and walk, but before the camera cuts, you can tell he's totally concussed, stunned, weaving back and forth. How is anybody supposed to cultivate life? I've seen seagulls fight over a used condom. Dear person in my belly, am I cooking you or are you roasting me? You so much as flip against my rib cage and my mind changes. Poker faced, I try to breast my cards like I went all in on the flop, but still need the river, like deep breaths, okay, no turning back. And there goes Mazzie's star again, because in this moment, I want to hold the hand inside me. All right. The next one is called Braxton Hicks Contractions. It's a quick one. At first, I was doubled over the kitchen counter, only in pain. Then in all sincerity, he forgot the term Braxton Hicks, asked if I was having a Jackson Pollock. If we were seagulls, we'd be so bad at surviving. Instead of fishing, we just flap around each other all day, squawking beakfuls of the most absurd garbage we could dredge up out of the Crab House parking lot. And the last one I'll read tonight is called Neighbors. All right. Omnivores complexing, claw-length lies, those badgers with the teeth. Early this morning, Russian troops poured over the border. I take out Mrs. Terry's trash, and in return, she leaves tinfoil-topped bowls of soup by my door. Undersalted business conducted on doormats, border provinces. Tell me why back home neighbors never act like you ain't a thing, always helping out to the point of overkill. Like Ronnie and them coming over to shoot bobcats that stalk our calves, even though there's no bounty. Mom texts, killed in Long Field, with a photo like it's good news. Mouth open dead, laid out on the truck bed with someone's dirty boot peeping the frame. Early morning darkness, phone flash caught that glossy coat just right. Tricolored triangle ears, not unlike the house cats in board books I read with my son. We've been practicing meow. So basically there's random dead bobcats in my mom's iPhoto grid next to her grandkids and flowers and shit. Sometimes coyotes, sometimes 2 or 3, always dark and shiny with the flash. I get the pics every time, like, don't worry, we've neutralized the threat. And every time it makes me want to disappear into my son's face, neck, ears. It's so sad. Tell me why my chest pulls out of itself when I hear a whippoorwill. Memories of my mom teaching me which bird calls which. She still whistles the same 3 notes every morning when she calls the heifers in. I would say how far away it feels, but there are wars raging and it comes out sounding spoiled. All right, thank you so much. Excited to introduce Dave Kirkpatrick. Dave is a soup kitchen manager and writer living in Bow, New Hampshire with his wife and daughter. He has worked as a journalist and teacher, but found his true calling as a stay-at-home dad. He now hopes to publish a poem or 2. All right, Dave, you got it.
So my first poem is called Young Men. It's about my brother and I trying to rescue a man who was drowning in the Yellowstone River when we were teenage boys. Snow melts in the high country and rolls off the mountains after the long solstice. Long after the solstice. Cold and powerful. A neighbor yells, waves wildly. I don't understand, then I see my brother. In the tall grass at the water's edge, calling my name, bring a rope. Racing toward the water, lariat in hand, heart pounding, pounding, pounding. I pass the neighbor, middle-aged. He pauses, ponders the river's pace, considers his slick-bottom cowboy boots. He's a banker. Me, all hat, my brother, no cattle. He's a goner, mutters the banker. He turns for home. I catch my brother and we watch the blonde head bobbing downstream, face barely breaking the surface. A moment or two passes. We stand alone, watching. Then, like yapping feral dogs, we chase that bobbing head because that's what young men do when there's something risky afoot. That's why they send boys to war. They tumble toward the guns, the danger, the explosions, knees and elbows pumping, hearts pounding, asking no questions. That's what I think when I remember, not how I cried for help, not the grasshoppers fleeing through the tall grass, rattling toward their doom, nor the larks and the small hawks chasing them under a hot August sun. We don't know the man inhabiting the floating head or the man who drifts behind, clinging desperately to a raft. Help, they might have called had they seen us, and we dash into the river, no questions. Thank you. The next poem is for a homeless woman I knew. Her name was Mary, and she came to this soup kitchen. That's exactly where I'm at right now. It's for Mary, 30 years homeless. I'm ashes in a pauper's box in a hole in the ground that is too small. My feet, head, and hands, and everything else that was me, packed into one tiny home. For 30 years, I lived without a home in a town made of houses full of people who looked away when I slept under bushes and on park benches and took my comfort from ragged people like me. When I was lonely, they did not touch me. When I was confused, they did not guide me. When I was angry, they did not hear me. And when a home would have saved me, they turned away and the dark swallowed me. Now the night sky is cold without mercy. If I were alive, it would blacken my skin. Those people hold a candlelight vigil for me while I fade from their memories, my soul slipping away quickly into the gloom that blankets us all. I am done with their darkness. I am done. This next poem is I wrote actually while I was shoveling the snow off my driveway during a big snowstorm here in New Hampshire. It's for Bernie. A snow shovel leans against the wall next to my back door, so I can clear a spot in the yard for my little dog to pee when the drift reaches his belly, or so I can dig a path to the garage and retrieve a bigger shovel if a nor'easter blows in. When we were young, the snow never piled so deep we worried about digging our way out, but we are older now and our storms are heavier, and I don't own a shovel big enough to move the news of your death. This last poem is called Others Light. When a virus was swallowing the light of the sun, my daughter was planning her life. We were in the shadows, huddled around our computers, counting our dead or watching deer graze in the yard in the new stillness. Sometimes we would drive into the growing ghost town and look for signs of life. At first, I wanted to protect her. She was only 17. Let her stay in her room, texting her friends and using peanut butter as an excuse for putting jelly on toast. As the dark grew more and more voracious, I became more and more disheartened and wanted her to save me. I found myself craving the inevitability of her life, wanting her to stand, her feet apart, wagging her finger while telling me where things had gone wrong and how she planned to fix it all. I wanted to watch her bundled in blankets, confidently reading aloud her finely tuned college essays, our two dogs at her feet, patiently awaiting her next firm order. As flint sparks when you strike it and starts a blaze that illuminates the way, she was certain and I needed her light. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for coming and listening to me, putting up with me. Our next poet is Cassie Burkhardt. Cassie's a classmate of mine. She's a wonderful poet. She started taking classes at the Writer's Studio back in 2008 in New York City and has studied with long breaks in between. She is from New York, but currently lives in Philadelphia with her husband and 3 kids. Her work has appeared in Cleaver, Rattle, The Good Life Review, and SAG Girls. Take it away, Cassie.
Thanks, Dave. I love that last one so much. It's just so touching. And thanks to everyone for having me. Can you hear me? It's okay?
Yep, we can hear you and see you fine. Good.
Okay. Thanks for putting this together, Joel and Lisa. Lisa was my first teacher. Never forget your first teacher at the Writer's Studio. And Peter, my current teacher, thanks so much for your support this year. It means so much to me. All right, I'm gonna lead with my husband, the brain surgeon. My husband, the brain surgeon. Normally we retreat to separate rooms after the kids are in bed. I spin around the house, wiping counters, emptying the dishwasher, always so much to do, and the years of marriage get lost like Tupperware lids. On call, he's sprawled on the guest bed with his laptop. Still life of neurosurgeon in underwear. I lean into the doorway, rescuing Pellegrino bottles from a heap of scrubs. I'm caught off guard by his sudden giddiness. Look, this was my bypass from today. Want to see the video? Sure, but I need to. Oh, just sit down and listen, I tell myself. He gets ice cream for us like we're about to watch an Oscar nominee, shouting from the kitchen about how bypasses are bridges for vessels that have forgotten how to connect themselves. And that sounds a lot like our marriage, so I listen up. The sound of spoon on bowl, the color of mint scoops awakens an old feeling inside me, and I flop next to him, ready to learn about vascular neurosurgery. He cues the video. Glossy grooves, knotted tangle, red and white gaps of glistening tissue, springy liquid highways crisscrossing in a webbed sea, lumen sutured to lumen, fine as a hair, he reminds me. All done through a microscope, I maneuver with a mouthpiece, hands free to do their magic artery connecting, sometimes with clips or catheters. Today, he's fashioned this bypass with an artery he's harvested from the scalp to redirect the blood flow deep in the brain. Pretty standard, he tells me. Even though we've been together 10 years, I still can't believe this is what my husband does. While I drive our minivan to Whole Foods, bathe all 3 kids in the tub, empty and load the dishwasher over and over again. I know what I do is important, but come on. We huddle side by side on our bellies like teenagers slurping loudly. I watch his eyes flood with excitement, his case, his hands, hours standing and no breaks. Why is it so hard to love, to pay attention to what's right in front of you? So easy to criticize, wallow, resent. How handsome he is when he's earnest. How loving I can be without a kid screaming in the background, play horsey. All anyone wants is a little attention, a bypass across the loneliness, to be opted into, redirected, then read, with practice, like a post-op angio. Wait for it, he says. Whoosh. Flash from darkness, and the vessels beam like heat lightning, branches of thirsty blood pathways reaching in all directions, untangled and flowing free, crossing the bridge, back to life. Okay, the next one is a waitressing poem. It's one of my first waitressing jobs when I was a teenager. It's called Soft Opening. Snapping his fingers at the steaming cutlery before me, the restaurant manager says, "Dry this, one piece at a time until I can see my reflection." A man with a ponytail and everything to lose. All day he's tuned up the credit card machine until Amex Black whipped through it like a Lamborghini. Opening night, July 4th weekend in the Hamptons. We tighten our aprons. One of the bartenders, Ludo, tugs at my apron knot in passing. Ça va toi? My spine goes electric. The smell of cut lime lingers around my waist. The bartenders are all chiseled men in their 30s, francophone and bussed in from Manhattan for the season. Brice, Seb, Ludovic, Saidou. Sleeves rolled up, their triceps look edible, their syllables voluptuous in dim lighting. What they want is their own bar, a motorcycle, to make snow angels and cash come Labor Day, disappear into the corners of Asia. But also something else, as Ludo palms a lime, rolls it slowly along the cutting board, winks at me, whispers to Seb, thrusts the cash register closed, then smacks a shaker open all at the same time, fills 2 glasses with glistening margaritas. At dusk, we light the votives. They flicker like jewels on the white tablecloths. Fire to shadow. Music starts with a lounge-lit beat, a bass ignites. The bar glows orange. Ludo tells a joke and 10 women erupt in laughter, bubbling over like a sauce I want to taste. My section is next to the bar, the section for walk-ins and those who only want dessert, the beginner section. I'm 17, young as my hair is long. I live around the corner with my parents, wear this summer job like I wear a bikini, hiding nothing that I want. I lean over to straighten a fork, every tiny muscle in my body poised in action and waiting. I catch Ludo eyeing me again, and a current ripples through me. He shakes another round of margaritas, motions me over to his secret glass. And as I walk over, I realize all I want now is to be that shaker, sweating and about to be opened. How did my mom and dad like that poem? This last one is actually for my mom. And since she's listening and my siblings, it's especially nice to read it to her, to them. Okay, it's called Love Letter to Artists. Artists take ordinary things and with them make magic. A single brush stroke blooms into a zinnia. Repeated ink swirl becomes a calligraphy octopus. Wire woven unto itself births a kind of jellyfish that hangs from the ceiling, undulates among brethren orbs, leather wreathed disco balls, soft fruit baskets of infinity. In the gallery, I resist the urge to touch, transfixed even by the shadows, lacy against the white walls of the gallery, teeming today. It's Saturday at David Zorner in Chelsea, and admirers in black and boots snap photo after photo of these sculptural treasures. Ruth Asawa, sculptor, mother, farmer. I'm still reeling. She grew up in an internment camp, studied with Albers, birthed 6 children, wore them like a cape, sketched them daily, molded ceramic masks of their faces, earthen portraits dried in the sun. Flash me back to my own mother, who filled our house with magic. Fashioned bouquets, snipped and wove, elaborate seasonal wreaths around our chandelier, baffled my SAT math tutor sitting underneath it. He called our house the artist's house. And even though my dad was a photographer and my mom a housewife, it was my mom's work he was talking about. My mother taught me that beauty is all around us, and why not bring a little bit home? Her medium was flowers, the natural world. She always had clippers, rough knuckles from communing with plants and twirling vines, rejoicing in wild rose and hydrangea, ferns or bark peelings, whatever was wild and calling to her. Offerings, she called them, placed neatly wherever might be appreciated by us. The homework desk, kitchen windowsills bathed in light, lackluster hotel rooms where we would unpack and she would bring in the bougainvillea, line up river rocks with a meandering stripe. Being an artist, my mom taught me, is not about getting credit. It's a way of breathing, of pulsing the blood. Magic with ordinary things, a celebration. Feathers and corks become trophies, worm shell fragments curlicue into confetti. A single veined leaf held up to the sun smiles like a beaming face. Thank you, everybody. Sweating a little bit. Okay, I am so excited to introduce my classmate and friend, Valerie Hastings. She's the 2020 winner of the Steve Coet Poetry Prize, recipient of an honorable mention for the 2020 Allen Ginsberg Award. She was a 2021 finalist for the Winning Writers Poetry Humor Contest, which I submitted to this year too. I'm so excited. I don't know if I'll ever win if Valerie's was a finalist. She's also been nominated for a push cart. Oh my gosh, Valerie, you're amazing. She's published her poetry in more than a dozen literary journals, including The New Guard, Patterson Literary Review, San Diego Poetry Annual, Literary Mama. Ooh, got a few rejections from them. She Mom and Crab Creek Review. Her first collection of poetry, Searching for Dandelion Greens, came out in June last year with Garden Oak Press. Valerie, I love you. Take it away. Don't forget to unmute.
Thank you so much, Cassie. Gosh, hello everybody, and what a fabulous set of readings to follow tonight. I'm going to read 3 poems tonight. The first one, I'm going to read you the epigraph, and then I'll read you the title. So between August 4, 1976 and May 1977, Monty Russell, age 18, abducted, raped, and murdered 5 young women. His crimes were all committed in Northern Virginia. News of the serial nature of these murders, or the murders themselves, did not break, if at all, until after Russell was arrested in May 1977. So the title of this first poem is Walking Home, September 1976, Annandale, Virginia, 2:30 a.m. And this is for my mom, whose 85th birthday would have been tomorrow. What the serial killer wants is practice. He's been driving for hours in this late summer heat, surfacing here 14 days after my 15th birthday as a shaggy older boy annoyance in a truck, following me and my best friend Bev home. Yesterday, what Bev and I wanted more than we wanted anything was to join our sophomore class at the Bradlick Theater for the midnight showing of Sleeper. And our mothers had said no. What Bev and I want now is plain to us both, to back into our bedroom windows, back into our warm beds, before our mothers, the gods who rule our lives, find us gone, kill us both. And this boy in his mud-blown truck with the windows down is getting in the way. He's rolling so stupidly slow on this dark Virginia morning. He's almost walking alongside us. The slap of his tires on the empty road on our left. And the trees, the dark, lush trees bearing their last summer fruits to our right. What the trees want, I think, is to hold on to their swirling green dresses another day before sleep overtakes them. Up ahead is the red and green beacon of the neighborhood 7-Eleven. In the neon glare of this small store, the night clerk, the only other person awake for miles, sits on his stool, I think wanting his endless shift to end, to fall asleep on his couch with his cat, TV down low, bag of Doritos on his chest. He's not a likely savior, but there are 3 of us now when the boy exits his truck and enters the store. He tracks us girls, first with his eyes, then more boldly on foot into the squat aisles of penny candies, pickled pig's feet, paper towels. The red and blue Slurpees turn drowsily like clocks in their machines, and I can feel his fast breathing now, feel his want, hear the small whine that comes from the back of his throat, feel a distinct shift in the air when he leaves us, 2 girls, closer than sisters here, intact. He's in prison now, that boy. At 63, he's still just 3 years older than me, than Bev, both of us grandmothers. What he wants is dust to us now. And our mothers, what did they want? To pay the rent, have a little peace, sip their coffee in the rosy morning while their girls grew in their beds. So the second poem, it's called Lightning Welk. And my husband and I are in the middle of selling the farm that I grew up in that's been in my family for 75 years. And we're also in the middle of selling our own home where we've lived for 20 years. So this poem came out of that experience. And for those of you who don't know what a lightning whelk is, it's a kind of seashell that can be found up and down the eastern United States coast down to Florida. It's similar to a conch. Lightning whelk. A small shell among the paperweights. Empty little concert hall. The music against my ear now like a thrum of blood. There was a desire inside that spiraled architecture once, a muscled foot striking out for the first time into the hydrous world. His, her, milky secretions trailing behind, like a silver thread sewn into the moonlit seabed, once a hunger. You picked it up off a Delaware beach before we met. On your desk now, like a small carved house propped up beside a calendar. Who knows where the owner has got to, but we can imagine it, like a gritty science movie, the briny soft body pulled from the calcite home it had built and carried its whole life, into the gull's white throat or the fisherman's calloused hand to the table. Better to look at the meal fleur waits here with their thousands of tiny red flowers trapped inside glass, or the Swarovski encrusted handcuffs I gave you that hold down a stack of bills. Why go looking for reasons to grieve? Yet we dig, we hunt. That night I found my way to you in the hotel room by what you'd left outside it. A plate of roasted bones, joints torn apart, sucked clean, and I was unafraid. I don't want to know who will live in our rooms when we're gone. Decades of pleasure at our table, our own. But the shell on your desk now is like this poem, what we leave behind. So this last poem is the title poem for my collection that came out. Shameless plug here in last June with Garden Oak Press. And it's called, my book is called, and my poem is called Searching for Dandelion Greens. And there's also an epigraph for this. Most people, that's kind of the universal command for stop. So that's a quote from an August 1628 interview of Police Chief Josh Etheridge in Chatsworth, Georgia, after he had tasered and arrested an 87-year-old Syrian grandmother with dementia who had gone into the woods with a paring knife to cut dandelion greens. Searching for dandelion greens. I have come to forage for memory with my plain sack and knife, pulling up these tender roots, shaking loose the dark soil. I know in my heart I was a girl once, my grandmother beside me, the blade clean and easy in my hand, summer mornings in a field with my grandmother, the light buttered down into the trees. I was a girl once. Taraxacum in Latin, lion's teeth, Dandelion in French, Alhunba al-Qudar in the most beautiful language of home, language of fields in summer. We empty the sack of its green and gold, flowers dancing in a sheen of oil, toothy ragged leaves, color of bitter dream on the tongue. Tell me, what do you bright-handed boys know about loss? Every child wants to take a fistful of these cottony seed heads, blow them into the wind, watch their delicate dreams carried up on the slipstream of longing. Every child wants a home. Each morning, my grandfather left a silver coin beneath his pillow so that I would find it when I came to make his bed. What does it mean to dream of dandelions? I read once it means multiplying into many good things. Seed, flower, fruit, light carried back from the fields, memory of silver warming in my hand. A girl told me once, no amount of beauty can replicate home. I see you have laid down your knife. I remember it is the universal language of peace. I see you have come to forage with me. Do you know my grandmother? Here, I have a plain sack, a knife. I open my arms to show you. Thank you. So our last fabulous poet reader tonight is Linda Droke, and I'm so happy to be introducing you, Linda. Linda is a poet, public health policy analyst, and volunteer writing group facilitator for Write Around Portland. She has been a student at the Writers Studio since 2020. Her poetry has been published or is forthcoming in Calyx, The Right Launch, Clackamas Literary Review, the Timberline Review, and elsewhere. She is the current poet laureate of a small ranch house in Beaverton, Oregon, where she has an audience of one human and one exceptionally attentive pug. Linda.
Thanks, Val. Thanks, everybody. So this first poem was created in response to an exercise in Peter's class, and you might detect a faint echo because a couple of other readers tonight shared poems written in response to that same exercise. For me, that's some of the magic of writing in community, though. You get to see what develops when each of us brings our own unique perspectives to the material. So my take on that exercise is called Birthday Surprise, Detroit, January 1982. What my mother wants is obvious, but not simple. She's sitting shotgun in the Impala next to my father, whom she calls Daddy. She's teased her blonde hair into a halo of curls, plucked her eyebrows, painted rosebud lips. She spends no time on crepe paper or chocolate cake. There's no mention of ear piercing or shopping for U2 albums. Giggles fill the front seat. She says this will be the best day ever. My father, in leather driving gloves, hangs on to a contented silence. He wants to be just where he is, hands at 9 and 3, quietly navigating the icy streets, eyes sliding past car dealerships, dirty snowbanks, the stainless steel sky. He likes being in control, but marginally engaged. He turns the wheel, expertly maneuvers into the narrow space my mother chooses. What the salesman at the bike shop wants is not clear through the plate glass window, but he appears to stare longingly at his pickup, the only other vehicle parked on the salt-streaked lot. He idly spins the wheel of a metallic green Schwinn. I am 13 today, and my mother has decided this is what I want: the means to pedal past the tank arsenal and Taco Bell, battling 4 lanes of speeding traffic on 10 Mile, crossing Van Dyke to reach the GM Tech Center, I guess, where over and over I can circle the chain link perimeter fence, because where else would I go? There's nowhere safe for a girl on a bike in this land of concrete and cars. My mother is inside already, laughing with the salesman. My father's forehead creases with tension as he hurries me from the rapidly cooling back seat towards the shop. A cheery bell rings as I step over the threshold into a new understanding. This is it, what my older sister wants, and what I want now too: to get and stay away, at the dorm or with friends over holiday breaks, coming home for brief weekends, to eat meatloaf and launder jeans. This is a new poem, and I was actually joking at rehearsal that this Zoom format provides a great platform for, crowdsourcing ideas for revisions. And then I was kind of thinking, like, that's a pretty great idea, because this is a, pretty sophisticated group of writers and readers. So if you have any ideas, throw them in the chat. This poem is called Still Life. Of all the paintings he made in his life, the round-bottomed pears, the Chinese lantern pods artfully crouched around green bottles of wine. Only a few remain, and the studio has grown dusty. He could go in there if he wanted, pick up a brush in his arthritic fingers, imagine a fresh place to start. He may still read that Shackleton biography, or drive the 6 hours to visit his brother, or perfect his barbecued ribs. He might learn how to use Twitter or get high and play every single Dylan album in chronological order, listening to Blonde on Blonde twice. But the light is waning. The maple trees turn to scarlet and caramel. Winter advances. He might paint her an apple that looks so real, she'll fill her mouth with dry canvas. This poem was published in the spring 2020 edition of the Timberline Review, which is a print and online journal published here in my home state of Oregon. It's a great publication, so when you're at your favorite independent bookstore, go pick one up. It is called Widow Girl. The loved ones cloak me in burlap words, frantic concern, kittens in a sack. The baby I didn't have isn't here to hide behind. I have the comfort of nothing, not even a reason. I've asked, but the trees just shrug. Should I hang myself from a stoic branch, a piñata finally cracked open? Who can tell me what it means to be a woman untethered? Maybe I'm a broken kite cut from dark silk, but maybe I am the wind. This final poem is called Nesting. Thanks again for coming to our reading tonight. We really appreciate your support. And again, thanks to the Writers Studio staff for putting this on. We really appreciate it. Nesting. I didn't want to live in these half-lit spaces, the yawning todays, the tomorrows draped in clean white sheets. I didn't want these shoulders holding doorknobs, or this forehead that throbs like a bell being pressed. I never welcomed the dead relative procession, familiar strangers dressed in my clothes, clutching keys that fit my locks in their pockets. Not the lists like paper birds that fly away. Not even the rooms I'm still finding in my home. The silent ballroom gilded in leaves, the oak paneled den full of bones and teeth. I did not want to crawl through musty passages that narrow like funnels, but I will admit, I've found small moments feathered in wonder. Thank you.
Ooh, everybody want to unmute my readers and at least congratulate each other? Fantastic.
Not everybody. You guys are great.
Nicely done. Nicely
Awesome
done.
job.
Yeah. I know it's a little narcissistic to applaud yourselves, so go ahead. Blew up. Fantastic. Well, thank you everybody for attending this. As Peter said, look at the range we had tonight of our 7 readers. So here's to Cassie and Rob, Linda, Taryn, Valerie, Dave, and Virginia. Nicely done. Nicely done. Okay, thank you all for staying around too. It's a good reading when everybody stays. The audience was here the whole time, which is a good scene. So listen, just a couple of quick things so you can get back to your lives. I'm going to put up some things in a minute so you can find out more information about the Writers Studio. I'm going to put up a slide to give you the email to get in touch with us. And then the other side I'm going to put up is in our community, the big news is that Philip Schultz has another memoir coming out. It's called Comforts of the Abyss, and I want to put up the title. And in June, it should be out, so take a look for that. If you use the email, that'll get you in touch with how to be on our email list. That's how you find out about the discounts, about the readings, and all that jazz. But again, thank you to the readers. Nicely done.